Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're tackling one of the absolute most high-yield, life-or-death concepts in all of medical science, and that is shock. Honestly, this condition comes up constantly, right? Whether you're on the clinic floor, in the ED, or just frantically prepping for your exams, it's absolutely crucial to get this right. Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and completely demystify exactly what's going on inside the body when shock actually sets in.
Be strong.
So here's our quick roadmap for today. Section 1 is defining shock. Section 2, the water supply analogy. Section 3, hypovolemic, the fluid problem. Section 4, cardiogenic, the pump problem. And finally, Section 5, distributive, the pipe problem.
Section 1. Defining shock. Right off the bat, there's a really common misconception that trips up a ton of students early on. And I want you to mentally cross this out in your notes right now. Shock does not just mean low blood pressure. If you're equating the two, you're looking at the macro level when you really need to be zooming in on the micro level. Low blood pressure? Well, that might be a symptom, sure, but it definitely isn't the root of the problem.
So the crucial point we need to understand is this: shock is fundamentally a cellular problem. By definition, it's a severe mismatch between tissue oxygen demand and oxygen supply right down at the cellular level. Essentially, your cells are literally gasping for air. They desperately need oxygen to survive, and the body's delivery system has completely failed them.
Section 2. The water supply analogy. To really visualize this, I want you to think of the cardiovascular system exactly like a city's water supply. If you're trying to get water to the houses in a city, or, oxygen to your cells, you absolutely rely on three basic things. Step 1, you need enough fluid in the system. Step 2, you need a working pump station, which is your heart. And step 3, you need intact pipes with good pressure, and those are your blood vessels. If any single one of those three elements fails, your cells don't get oxygen, and bam, you get shock. It really is that simple.
Section 3. Hypovolemic, the fluid problem.
Now, what's really interesting about this first failure point is right there in the name. Hypo means low, and vol refers to volume. This is strictly a fluid problem. In our city water analogy, the tank is just empty. There's a massive leak in the system somewhere. This happens when the body loses a huge amount of blood. Think major trauma or a severe GI bleed. But it doesn't just have to be whole blood, right? You can also lose a massive amount of plasma. We see this with severe dehydration or in patients with extensive burns where fluid just weeps right out of the tissues. Either way, that fluid level drops drastically.
So because there isn't enough blood volume to push around, venous return to the heart drops, and your cardiac output absolutely plummets. This is exactly where the blood pressure bottoms out. But hey, your body is smart. It desperately tries to compensate. Your sympathetic nervous system basically kicks into overdrive, clamping down on those blood vessels to preserve whatever pressure it possibly can, and concurrently, your heart rate skyrockets. It's desperately trying to circulate the tiny bit of fluid that's actually left in the tank.
And this underlying physiology tells us exactly what we're going to see when we actually walk into the patient's room. Because the heart is racing, but the volume is incredibly low, the patient is going to present with a rapid, thready pulse. And because that sympathetic nervous system is clamping down on all those peripheral blood vessels to shunt blood to the vital organs, their skin is going to feel super cold and clammy to the touch.
But let's completely switch up the scenario for a second. I have a question for you. What if you have plenty of fluid? The tank is totally full, the pipes are perfectly intact, but suddenly, a lightning bolt strikes the pump station and the pump breaks.
Section 4. Cardiogenic, the pump problem.
Just as the name gives away, this particular issue originates with the heart muscle itself. In this scenario, the tank is full, the pipes are fine, but the heart muscle has failed and it just cannot pump blood forward effectively. And by far the most common culprit for this broken pump? A massive myocardial infarction, a major heart attack that seriously damages the heart's pumping ability.
Let's walk through exactly how this failure builds into a really dangerous cascade. First, the left ventricle fails and simply can't push blood forward into the aorta. But you know that blood has to go somewhere, right? So it begins moving backward, backing up right into the lungs. This massive traffic jam increases the pulmonary capillary hydrostatic pressure. And when that pressure gets high enough, it physically pushes fluid out of the vessels and right into the alveoli, those tiny air sacs in your lungs. And once again, the biology directly dictates the clinical presentation we see.
Because those tiny air sacs are filling up with backed up fluid, when you take your stethoscope and listen to this patient on auscultation, you're going to hear very distinct crackles in their lungs. And of course, because their air sacs are literally flooded, they're going to be experiencing some severe shortness of breath.
Okay, time for one more what if. What happens if the heart pump works perfectly and you started with a completely full tank of fluid, but suddenly, out of nowhere, the pipes expand to 3 times their normal width and become highly porous?
Section 5. Distributive, the pipe problem.
Now, this category often trips people up, but just remember this: the container has suddenly become way too big for the fluid inside it. The fluid didn't actually leave the body, but the pipes dilated and became leaky. So what causes this? Well, the 2 biggest culprits we face in medicine are septic shock, which is an overwhelming systemic infection, and anaphylactic shock, a severe allergic reaction. Both of these saboteurs trigger massive systemic vasodilation, but they actually do it in slightly different ways.
Let's get really granular here and look at exactly how these 2 different immune responses lead to the exact same leaky capillary outcome. On the left side, with septic shock, the infection trigger is massive. Angry bacteria cause macrophages to release inflammatory cytokines. Specifically, we're talking TNF-alpha and interleukin-1. These chemicals tell your blood vessels' endothelial cells to release nitric oxide, which causes massive systemic vasodilation, and the capillaries literally physically separate leaking fluid. Now, on the right side, with anaphylactic shock, the trigger is an allergen, like a peanut or maybe a bee sting. This allergen binds to IgE antibodies on your mast cells. The mast cells burst, degranulating and releasing massive amounts of histamine. And just like nitric oxide, this histamine causes immediate systemic vasodilation and capillary leaking. So it's totally different triggers, but an absolutely identical pipe failure.
But listen, there is a very unique and urgent danger specific to that allergic trigger. While histamine dilates the blood vessels, it simultaneously causes smooth muscle contraction in the lungs. This leads to profound bronchospasm, meaning the airways completely clamp shut. This makes anaphylactic shock a real dual-threat emergency.
And this brilliantly illustrates why knowing the mechanism matters so much for your treatment. Because septic shock features dilated, leaky pipes holding an inadequate volume of fluid, the latest 2026 Surviving Sepsis Campaign guidelines emphasize early recognition and immediate IV crystalloid fluid resuscitation. You have to aggressively refill those widened pipes. Conversely, because anaphylaxis features dilated pipes alongside clamped-down airways due to all that histamine, we immediately give epinephrine. Epinephrine acts as a powerful vasoconstrictor to instantly tighten the pipes back up, and a bronchodilator to force those airways back open. Your treatment is directly targeting the exact structural failure.
Which brings us to our ultimate summary matrix. If you're a focus learner prepping for an exam right now, this is definitely your screenshot moment. Hypovolemic shock is the empty tank caused by blood or plasma loss. Cardiogenic shock is the broken pump, usually caused by a myocardial infarction. And distributive shock is the floppy, leaky pipes, most often caused by sepsis or anaphylaxis.
As this quote emphasizes, this whole explainer isn't just about memorizing some textbook facts. Understanding the underlying mechanism is the key to knowing exactly how to treat your patient. Grasping this structural, city water analogy translates directly to the quick, life-saving medical treatments you're going to deploy out there in the real world.
So you now have the framework to approach any shock scenario with total confidence. But honestly, it kind of leaves us with a chilling realization about the human body. If our survival hinges entirely on the perfect balance of just the pump, some pipes, and a few liters of fluid, how many other microscopic failures are we just one single step away from? Keep studying, stay curious, and I will see you in the next explainer.